Hola clase, bienvenidos a EdVantage. Soy Fabio. Hoy vamos a practicar los sustantivos en español. Today we are going to practice nouns in Spanish and how to use the noun with the article. Let's start with explaining a little bit of what the nouns are. In Spanish, los sustantivos are to express person, to designate a place, a thing, or an idea. Remember that in Spanish it's very important that the gender and the number have to match with the noun. We call it sustantivo femenino or sustantivo masculino. Let's talk about that. The gender and number in Spanish is very easy to find in certain words. Most of the words in Spanish, the nouns particularly, sustantivos, end in o or in a. So that's gonna give us an idea if masculine or is feminine. When we talk about number, we talk about singular or plural. How to form the plural in Spanish? Most of the nouns end in o or a, we are just simply going to add s. But if the noun ends in a consonant, we are going to add es. Attention with certain words in Spanish like lápiz. We are going to switch the z by a c and add es. So we become lápices for pencils. Let's talk about masculine nouns in Spanish. First, we are going to take a look at how they work. They usually end in O. For example, chico, bolígrafo, cuaderno. Some nouns in Spanish, not all of them, end in A. Sometimes they end in ción, or dad. Let's take a look. Chica, televisión, acción, posibilidad. These are all feminine nouns. Articles in Spanish define what we talk about. For example, let's take a look at the two categories, definite articles and indefinite articles. Definite articles is to designate an object that exists. So we use el, la for singular, los, las for plural. Unlike the definite articles, the indefinite articles designate any object that is not present in front of us. Un, una, unos, unas. Let's take a close look at how to form them. There are many exceptions. We're going to go through a few of them. So not all the words follow the pattern of femenino, masculino ending in o or a. Let's take a look. Certain nouns in Spanish that are masculine may end even in a. So we need to memorize them all. I'm going to give you a few examples of the most common ones. El día, el mapa, el reloj, el lápiz, el borrador. Notice the ending of this word, of these nouns, is not necessarily an o. Problema is one of the most common nouns in Spanish to be mistaken because it ends in ma. So every time you have a word ending in ma, make sure that you are going to use the masculine article. Let's take a look at some of the feminine that are irregulars. La tarde, la noche, la clase, all of them end in e, and then we have la luz ending in z. Exception to the rule part 2. Now we are going to have certain nouns that refer only to these forms. Let's take a look. If you have estudiante, which could be a student, to designate if it is female or male, we are going to do is simply add the article el. Dentista ends in a, is always dentista. So if you want to differentiate between masculine and feminine, we just use the article. El dentista, la dentista. Artista, same thing. So let's take a look at the feminines. So we are going to do la estudiante, la dentista, la artista. Exception to the rule number 2. So certain nouns in Spanish that start with a and still are feminine might take the article in masculine because of this phonetic conflict. For example, agua is a feminine word. However, notice that we use el agua because if you have la agua, it will have a conflict of phonetics. So for purposes of that, we switch it to the masculine noun. Other words are el águila, el alma. But notice that the adjectives would always be feminine. Let's talk about plurals. How to form plurals in Spanish. Add s to any noun that ends in a vowel. For example, let's take a look. Chico becomes chicos. Silla, sillas. If rather the noun ends in a consonant, we are going to use add es. Papeles, relojes. Let's talk about some of the plurals that we have some conflict with. If the noun ends in a Z like lápiz, we're going to take the Z out, replace it with ses, lápices. Certain words in Spanish that have an accent in the singular might lose the accent in the plural. Examen, exámenes. Notice that. Canción, canciones. Let's take a look up a little bit more closer to the plurals. Okay. Los chicos designate usually a group of male boys. But sometimes in Spanish, because the masculine noun is dominated, if even the presence of one feminine element, it still will make it a masculine word. Los chicos. Los estudiantes involves not only male students, but also female and male. Let's practice. Now it's time for you to help me out. So here I have a picture of a teacher. You will say what? Correct. El profesor. We have here a desk. El escritorio. Notebook. El cuaderno. We have a board. Correct. La pizarra. Now we have the book. El libro. La puerta. Let's take a closer look to other words. El papel. Good job. El lápiz. Good job. El cesto de papeles. La ventana. La regla. El reloj. El mapa. Notice this word ends in A, however, is el mapa. We have to memorize. El periódico. El estudiante. La silla. El sacapuntas. Notice this word is plural, but it's actually one word. Sacapuntas. Y el borrador. Good job. Until next time, gracias. Nos vemos pronto.